Or, the long-forgotten kingdom where the gods lived among humans, but had a tragic end. Today, in honor of the Guild Wars 3 announcement, we're diving into the lore of this once great nation. So hello and welcome to my channel. Here we'll learn the lore and stories of Tyria. Please sit back and relax as we discover the lore of Or. As always, you can find the full lore and story on the Guild Wars wikis. Let's begin. The City of the Gods. There are places in Tyria that feel less like nations and more like memories carved into stone. Or was one of them. Long before the kingdoms of Ascalon and Kryta rose to prominence, the region that would become Or held a special place in human history. The 6 human gods had arrived in Tyria from the mists, bringing humanity with them. In Or, they established Ara, a magnificent city that would come to be known throughout history as the City of the Gods. It was there that the gods walked among mortals, shaping the early destiny of humanity and leaving an enduring mark upon the world. For a time, divine and mortal life existed side by side. The gods guided humanity during its earliest history in Tyria, and stories of their direct involvement shaped human culture for generations. Their presence influenced how humans understood faith, duty, justice, nature, beauty, and the responsibilities that came with power. Among humanity's leaders during this age was King Doric, a ruler remembered not only for his wisdom, but also for his close relationship with the gods themselves. It was during this ancient age that Abaddon, then revered as a god of water and secrets, granted the knowledge of magic to the mortal races of Tyria. The gift was extraordinary. It was not reserved for humanity alone, nor was it limited to the people of Or. Magic spread throughout Tyria, allowing countless races to harness the forces of the world around them. Mortals learned to command flame and lightning, shape ice and stone, mend wounds, protect allies, and channel destructive energies capable of reshaping battlefields. Magic transformed Tyria. It accelerated the growth of civilizations and opened new paths of discovery and learning. Scholars devoted their lives to understanding its principles. Healers used it to preserve life. Craftsmen wove it into remarkable creations. Across the world, entire cultures adapted to its presence. But alongside wonder came ambition. As the centuries passed, conflicts erupted between those who sought to use magic to dominate others. The devastation caused by these struggles grew so severe that King Doric journeyed to Ara and pleaded with the gods to intervene before Tyria tore itself apart. The gods listened. Acting together, they gathered much of the unrestricted magical power that had spread throughout the world and sealed it within the Bloodstones. In doing so, they divided magic into separate disciplines so that no single mortal could wield its full catastrophic potential. The decision changed Tyria forever. Not long afterward, following the events that led to Abaddon's downfall and imprisonment, the gods departed from Tyria in what became known as the Exodus of the Gods. But they left Ara behind, and Or changed because of that absence. For nearly 1,000 years, the Orients acted as caretakers of the City of the Gods. They maintained its temples, preserved its monuments, and safeguarded the sacred places where the gods had once walked among mortals. The Orients saw themselves as favored of the gods. Living in the shadow of Ara, they believed they had inherited a special responsibility to protect the divine legacy left behind and preserve it for future generations. Many hoped that one day the gods would return to Tyria and once again walk the streets of their ancient city. This devotion shaped Orient society. Or became one of the 3 great human kingdoms, standing alongside Ascalon and Kryta, yet it developed an identity uniquely its own. Faith and scholarship flourished side by side. The pursuit of knowledge was valued alongside reverence for the past. Priests, historians and scholars all played important roles in preserving the kingdom's understanding of itself and its place within the wider world. The kingdom also became renowned as a center of magical learning. Or possessed an unusually high concentration of arcane energy and was regarded as a nexus of magical study and research. Visitors from distant lands often remarked on how naturally Oriens incorporated magic into their lives. To them, magic was neither mysterious nor exceptional. It was familiar, it was studied, it was respected. Great libraries rose beside marble temples. Scholars debated philosophy beneath towering statues dedicated to the gods. Pilgrims traveled from distant kingdoms to stand where divine footsteps had once fallen. And at the center of it all stood the city of the gods itself, Ara. A place of worship, a place of learning, a symbol of humanity's closest connection to the divine. For generations, its shining towers overlooked the Orient Peninsula, enduring through the rise and fall of neighboring kingdoms, weathering wars and political change alike. To many throughout Tyria, Ara seemed eternal, and for a time it was easy to believe that it always would be. The kingdom that sank. As the Third Guild War spread across Tyria, Or initially attempted to remain distant from the conflicts between the other human kingdoms. However, the war eventually reached even Ara itself. Or was drawn into the conflict in order to defend its capital and sacred sites. Soon after, a far greater threat arrived, the Char invasion. Following the devastation of Ascalon advanced southward across Tyria, Or's military forces were not fully positioned at home, leaving the kingdom vulnerable. The Char swept through Or with terrifying speed. Orion forces attempted to halt their presence, but their defenses collapsed in less than a day. The invading army marched towards Ara itself, and before long, they stood at the very gates of the city of the gods. They had come farther than anyone believed possible. King Reza and his advisor, Vizier Kilberon, watched as the kingdom faced its darkest hour. Ara had not yet fallen, but defeat stood at its doorstep. The Char would never set foot within the sacred city. Because before they could breach its gates, Kilberon made a choice that would change Tyria forever. In desperation, he turned to the forbidden knowledge contained within the lost scrolls. Believing he could save Ara from destruction, he invoked their magic. The spell succeeded in destroying the invading Char forces gathered outside the city. However, the magic continued beyond its intended purpose. In 1071 AE, the cataclysm struck. The earth split apart, the sea rushed inward, the Orient Peninsula sank beneath the waters that would become known as the Sea of Sorrows. Ara disappeared beneath the waves, countless lives were lost, and the kingdom of Or ceased to exist in the world above. The Char had never entered the city of the gods, but the city had been lost all the same. What survived the fall? Or did not vanish entirely. It sank, but its people survived. Many Oriens escaped the cataclysm and fled to Kryda and other regions. Over generations, they and their descendants became part of Krytan society, while still preserving traces of their Orien identity, culture, and memory. Their presence is reflected in historical accounts such as the book Sea of Sorrows, which describes how Orien refugees and their descendants lived on long after the fall of their homeland. They were sometimes integrated into Krytan society, and at other times regarded as outsiders tied to a lost and tragic past. Or itself became both history and myth. A drowned kingdom spoken of in stories, half remembered and half lost to time. Meanwhile, beneath the Sea of Sorrows, the ruins of Or remained, silent, buried, waiting. The kingdom reborn in death. For nearly 150 years, Or remained beneath the Sea of Sorrows. Its cities slept beneath the waves, Its temples stood in silence, its story slowly passed from history into legend. Then, in 1219 AE, something ancient stirred beneath the ocean floor. The elder dragon Zaitan awakened. And with its awakening, the drowned kingdom of Or rose once more. But what emerged from the sea was not the ore that had been lost. It was something far more terrible. As the peninsula broke through the surface, an enormous tsunami spread outward across Tyria. Entire coastlines were reshaped by the disaster. Ships vanished beneath the waves. Thousands lost their lives. The floodwaters reached distant lands, affecting Kryda, the Tarnished Coast, Elona, and even Kantha, where parts of Old Kaineng City and Qingyei Island suffered devastation. The world had not simply witnessed the return of a lost kingdom, it had witnessed the arrival of an elder dragon. When Or resurfaced, it had already been claimed by Zaitan's corruption. The elegant marble cities of old lay shattered and overgrown with unnatural coral and decay. Once fertile farmland had become barren wastelands. Great cathedrals dedicated to the 6 human gods stood broken beneath dark skies. And the dead began to rise. The people of Or, lost during the cataclysm centuries earlier, became servants of the Elder Dragon. Corsairs who had once sailed the Sea of Sorrows joined their ranks. Fallen soldiers, travelers, and creatures of Tyria were added to Zaitan's growing army. They became the Risen. Most Risen possessed only fragments of thought, acting as extensions of Zaitan's will, but others retained enough intelligence to command armies, plan attacks, and spread corruption throughout the world. Among Zaitan's most dangerous servants were powerful champions drawn from Or's own past. Former kings, queens, priests, and powerful magic users twisted into monstrous reflections of who they had once been. The kingdom that had once guarded the memory of the gods had become the center of an undead empire. By the time of Guild Wars 2, Or had become one of the most dangerous places in Tyria. To stop Zaitan, the 3 orders, the Vigil, the Derman Priory, and the Order of Whispers, set aside their differences and united under a single banner, the Pact. From their stronghold at Fort Trinity, the Pact launched an invasion into Or itself. This was not a single battle, but a long and costly campaign fought across the ruined kingdom. The first major push led through the Straits of Devastation, where Pact forces fought to establish footholds against endless waves of undead. The region stood between mainland Tyria and Or proper, becoming the gateway to the campaign ahead. Beyond it lay Malkor's Leap, once the fertile breadbasket of Or. There, statues of the gods still towered over the landscape, watching silently as war unfolded beneath them. Ancient temples dedicated to Dwayna and Lyssa became battlegrounds where the Pact fought to reclaim sacred ground from Zaitan's forces. Further south awaited the Cursed Shore. This region guarded the final path toward Ara itself. The temples of Grenth and Melandro stood amid corruption and ruin, while some of Zaitan's strongest servants defended the dragon's domain. Every step closer to Ara demanded sacrifice. Yet, even amid the devastation, signs of the kingdom Or had once been still endured. Ghosts lingered in abandoned sanctuaries, ancient monuments stood against the passage of time, fragments of prayer echoed through broken halls. It was as if the land itself remembered what it had once been. As the Pact advanced deeper into Or, another objective emerged. At the heart of the fallen kingdom lay the Artesian waters, ancient springs tied to Or's powerful magic. Zaitan had used these waters to spread corruption throughout the land. By cleansing them, the Pact weakened the dragon's hold over Or and disrupted the spread of its influence. At last, the campaign reached its final destination, Ara, the city of the gods. Once the pride of humanity, now the throne room of an elder dragon. There, within the shattered remains of the city that Or had protected for centuries, the Pact confronted Zaitan, and the elder dragon fell. The victory did not restore Or. The dead did not simply disappear. The ruined cities were not rebuilt overnight. But for the first time since the kingdom had risen from the sea, or had a future not defined solely by death. The corruption began to weaken. The risen lost the unity of purpose that Satan had imposed upon them. And slowly, cautiously, the possibility of healing returned to the land. Or had once drowned beneath the weight of desperation, then it had risen again beneath the shadow of an elder dragon. But even after all it had endured, the kingdom refused to be forgotten. And perhaps that is Or's greatest legacy. Not that it survived untouched, but that it survived at all. This has been the lore and story of Or. I hope you enjoyed this video. Or is a fascinating place and super rich in history, and I'm glad that we're going there in Guild Wars 3 to discover what it was like before all of this we've just been through. I'm so hyped for Guild Wars 3 and I hope you are too. With that said, thank you for watching this video. Please like and comment something you thought was interesting or something that I missed. Also subscribe to not miss future lore content in this format. Now, take care, and I will see you in the next story. Goodbye.